Ladies and gentlemen, you really make a difference in this country. As I said, I could quote statistics. I could talk about family. I could talk about the youth of this country. I can talk about how opposed I am to the hip-hop culture. People say, what's the difference between athletes today and 25 years ago? Today, everybody wants to talk about their rights and their privileges. 25 years ago, people talked about their obligations and their responsibilities. And to me, I'm one of these old-fashioned people that believe you have obligations, you have responsibilities. As Harry Truman said, the freedom to swing your fist ends where the other guy's nose begins. Your freedom to do what you want to do ends when it affects other people. And I was doing some research and I came across this one comment here. And this was made by an individual. Incidentally, this came from Father Kavanaugh, who was at Steubenville University and a friend of mine. In his farewell address says, "My earnest prayer to God that He would be most graciously pleased to dispose us all to do justice, to love mercy, and to demean ourselves with that charity, humility, and specific temper of mind, which were the characteristics of the divine author of our religion. Without a humble imitation of whose examples in these things, we can never hope to be a happy nation." That was George Washington's farewell address, where he believed the importance of God, the importance of justice, the importance of charity, the importance of humility. When I read that, I couldn't help but think of the people associated with this fine organization. And all I can do is stand on the sideline, make a financial contribution, and cheer for you, and pray for you, and say thank God that there are enough people like those assembled in this room. And thank God there are enough people that care about what happens to this country and what happens to the youth. And are willing to stand up and say, I will be accounted for and I will not be intimidated. Just because you're going to try to embarrass me because you can't win with logic. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how anybody gets through this world without faith. One of my goals was to learn how to do magic. This simple little trick, anybody can do it. Newspaper, you have front page where people want to read the news. You have the comics where people can't read. And you always have the editorial page where people can't think. And I'm a firm believer that if you take somebody you admire and respect and take somebody you have a problem with, anybody take somebody you admire and respect, take somebody you have a problem with, put these three questions on both people. Simple yes or no. Can you trust them, yes or no? Are they committed to excellence, yes or no? Do they care about other people, yes or no? I guarantee the person you admire and respect, you just said yes to all three questions. The person you got a problem with, you pinpointed the problem. Either you can't trust them, they aren't committed, or they don't care. It isn't magic in anything you do. Just like many of you probably thought. I wake up in the middle of the night screaming because I can't figure it out either. But I leave you with this last thought. My last year at Notre Dame, we went over to Dublin, Ireland to play the Naval Academy. When we were over there, we went to see a lot of different things. One thing we saw was a monastery built in the 12th century. We got there, all we saw was dilapidated walls and a huge cemetery. And at that cemetery, a young man, a defensive lineman named Alton Maiden from Dallas, Texas, who incidentally picked up a fumble and scored a touchdown in that game, wrote a poem titled The Dash. I didn't know he wrote it then, but we used to have a football luncheon at Notre Dame, and three athletes would get up and talk about their experience at Notre Dame. Well, like Greg Henry got up, the kicker. Instead of talking about his experience at Notre Dame, he went into a tirade about how unfair Coach Holtz is to kickers. And he said, we're the only school in America travels with one kicker and three priests. He did the punting, the place kicking, the kick. He did it all. Then everybody else has 3 kickers. He said, no, I don't have anybody to even talk to in pregame warm-up. And the sucker wouldn't let go. And he kept going on and on about how unfair we were to kickers and about the 3 priests. And when he sat down, I got up and I looked at him and I said, Craig, if you kick better, we'd only need to travel with 1 priest. You know, but it was this type of environment that we had this luncheon. And Alton Maine got up and he read this poem that he had written titled The Dash. Said, I've seen death stare at me with my own eyes, way many cannot know. I've seen death take a lot of other people, left me here below. I've heard many mother cries and death refused to hear. And in my life I've seen a lot of faces filled with many, many tears. After death has come and gone, a tombstone sits for many to see. It was no more than a symbol of a person's memory. Under the person's name it read the date of birth, dash, and the date the person passed. The more I think about the tombstone, the only important thing is the dash. Yes, I say the name of the person, but that I might forget. Read the date of birth and death, and even that might not stick. But thinking about the person, I can't help to think about the dash. Because that represents a person's life, and that will always last. So when you get to chart your life, make sure you're on a positive path. Because people may forget your birth and death, they'll never forget your dash. Thought that was pretty good advice by a 21-year-old defensive lineman. As I close, everybody wonders what's going to happen to Notre Dame. I tell you this, they go through difficult times. They've been through them before. I hope that whatever changes need to be made will be made, not necessarily the football coach. But let me remind you this. Why Notre Dame's in South Bend? It wasn't supposed to be there. It's supposed to be in San Diego. I don't know if you're aware of that. 1842, Father and Sword and a brave group of 5 French priests set out for San Diego where they were going to start this Catholic university. They came across northern Indiana. It was windy and snowy, and he said, I'm miserable. I can't go any further tonight. So he said, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to set up camp here tonight. We'll leave the minute the weather gets better. And the weather never got any better. That's why it's in South Bend. But in 1880, when Notre Dame burnt down, Father Soren said then, the reason that dome burnt down was we didn't make it big enough. He said, we're going to build it bigger than ever before so they can see it miles away. And in 1880, Father Soren made this comment. When people want to know what made Notre Dame special, they have to do nothing but then look to the lady on the dome. That was long before they ever had a football team. Lady on the dome will always take care of Notre Dame. They'll have difficult times, but they'll be back. It's a special place. It's been a pleasure to be here. Now I want to say 3 words most of you have been waiting for me to say since I stood up here. Those 3 words are simply, I thank you.